well, it just wasn't meant to be for Girona under Michel, who competed well throughout the match, especially in the first half. But in the end, a penalty from Mohamed Salah decided a game that was pretty even up to that point. Let's get to it from Montilivi. What's up, guys? How are you doing? Welcome to Mundo Maldini, welcome to the Champions League, and welcome to the Montilivi Stadium, which has experienced one of those most special days today. Tomorrow, you will have a video with the whole experience because it has been absolutely special. It has been really very special for me, and above all, for the city, because it has been incredible. Liverpool fans were still singing for Arne Slot. Girona identified Liverpool's weaknesses as they lacked their usual rhythm with the ball seen in the Premier League and European Cup. In the first 10 minutes, Liverpool dominated possession. However, their high defensive line caused problems in the first half. Girona figured it out, especially through the side covered by Alexander-Arnold. Alexander-Arnold moved inside, which Girona exploited. It's true that in the first 10 minutes, we saw a Liverpool that looked more like themselves, dominating possession, especially from the three centre-backs at the back. Honestly, seeing Virgil van Dijk live is absolutely spectacular. The way he organizes and covers so much ground is incredible. And then, well, that high defensive line caused them some problems in the first half. The first 10 minutes were controlled by Arne Slot's team, and from the 10th minute on, I think Girona figured it out, especially through that side covered by Alexander-Arnold. The fact is that with three centre-backs, Liverpool would come out with Robertson, Virgil van Dijk, and Joe Gomez on the right side, and Alexander-Arnold, who often does this because he has the ability to move inside, really allowed Girona to exploit that space. Danjuma's runs were crucial for Girona, noted by Mitchell for improved defense. Girona's lineup, Gazzaniga, Frances, Juanpe, Greci blind with Romeo and De Beek as pivots. Romeo struggled, De Beek caused the penalty. In the second half, Gil, Gutiérrez, Asprilla, and Juma played. Girona exploited Arnold's side, with Gutierrez's overlaps and Juma's play. Blind impressed defensively, Frances stopped Diaz. Let's examine the starting 11. Girona includes key players, with Oriol Romeo struggling in intensity. In the second half, Bryan Gil, Miguel Gutiérrez, Asprilla, and Danjuma played smartly, exploiting Alexander-Arnold's side with Gutierrez's overlaps. The formation is a flexible 4-2-3-1, leaning towards a 4-3-3 with Bryan Gil and Asprilla supporting Danjuma. Donny van de Beek, Bryan Gil, Miguel Gutierrez, Asprilla, and Danjuma from Girona. They smartly exploited Alexander-Arnold's side with Miguel Gutierrez's overlaps, playing freely and excelling on the left like Danjuma. Daily Blind impressed in defense, and Alejandro Frances stopped Luis Diaz well. The formation shifted between 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3 with Gutierrez's role hard to define. Bryan Gil and Asprilla, strong in the first half, dropped behind Danjuma, the false nine, often on the left. Liverpool's lineup was familiar. Alisson, Arnold, Gomez, Van Dijk, Robertson in defense with Jones, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai. It's more 4-2-3-1 than 4-3-3 as Soccerway suggests. It's a bit of a changing 4-2-3-1 formation because logically Miguel Gutierrez's position is hard to define, but I would say it's more of a 4-3-2-1 with Bryan Gil and Asprilla, who also had a great game in the first half, dropping behind the false nine, which was Danjuma, who often played on the left. Let's talk about Liverpool, whose lineup was quite recognizable with Alisson Becker, Arnold, Joe Gomez, Van Dijk, and Robertson. In defense, along with Jones, Gravenberch, and Szoboszlai. It's more of a 4-2-3-1 than a 4-3-3, as our friends from Soccerway suggest. And up front with Luis Diaz, Mohamed Salah, and Darwin Núñez. A pretty dull match from Liverpool's front three. Honestly, none of them were at their best. I think that Darwin Núñez even comes out somewhat marked by the chances he has had, especially one at the end of the first half that could well have been 2009-0. But let's get to what the match was like. As I said, in the first half, Girona, sitting back in a low block, managed to identify that weakness of Liverpool behind their defense, which is one of the risks you obviously take when you have a high defensive line like teams such as Barca or this Liverpool under Slot, which leaves a lot of space behind, especially for the centre-backs. Girona read the game well, and they played a different style than what Mitchell's team usually does, as they tend to take control of the match. They identified Liverpool's weaknesses and caused them trouble, especially from the 10th to the 20th minute, where they had several chances, including one from Bryan Gil, who slipped, which could have easily made it 1-0. Then, almost immediately after, Alejandro Frances had a shot at the far post that Alisson Becker saved really well. Both Alisson and Gazzaniga had great games. They are to blame for this match not ending with more goals, because there were clear chances for both teams. As I said, Girona had a rough first 10 minutes, but from the 10th to the 20th minute, they started to regain some ground. I wouldn't say they were completely bottling Liverpool, but every time Liverpool came out, they did so with some danger. Liverpool, aiming to control the game a bit more with the ball, had chances early on. In those first 10 minutes, they looked better than Mitchell's side. Joe Gomez had a header that Paulo Gazzaniga saved, and then at the end of the first half, Darwin Núñez had a pretty clear chance. The second half was different. I think Liverpool won more with the ball. Curtis Jones grew a lot. Ryan Gravenberch grew in that double pivot role that we have been seeing lately in the Premier League, in the Champions League. And I think Liverpool were much better with the ball. Girona continued to sit back in a low block and counterattack whenever they could, creating a very clear chance where they did everything right. They got past Alexander Arnold on the right side perfectly and sent it up to a player who still lacks that finishing touch. I think Girona, in general, is missing a striker. They've lost some very important players, and they really miss Sivankov on that right side. But it's a lack of punch that has ultimately cost them in Europe, leaving them in a very delicate situation right now. Obviously, it cannot be said that the team has been eliminated, but the situation at Girona is actually quite complicated right now. The second half was weaker. It is true that Liverpool controlled the ball more, and obviously that left Girona at the mercy of finding a counterattack. In the first half, Girona with the ball looked super smart to me. They supported each other really well, and the help was constant, both from Donny van de Beek, who dropped back a lot to receive, and from Miguel Gutiérrez, who came down when Daley Blind moved inside, which he did many times. I think they were a very dynamic team, as we're used to seeing, with a lot of movement among all the players. Liverpool, on the other hand, wasn't having the rhythm they usually have in Champions League matches, and especially as we've seen in the Premier League. The thing is, as I mentioned, the second half was completely different, and that penalty, that controversial action, that stomp by Donny van de Beek at the end, I think it's a silly penalty, because it is a silly penalty, but it is a penalty because he ends up taking the boot off, and it completely determines the course of the match. From that moment on, when there were practically no attacks from Girona, the chances were all for Liverpool, especially long-range shots, some from Alexander Arnold, also trying from distance against Gazzaniga, who, as I said, had a good game. He stopped Darwin Núñez's chances, and in the end, he was the one who, out of Liverpool's timid shots, managed to do the most, or rather, he did the best job of keeping the score at 0-1, which ultimately didn't change. I think the feeling about the match is bittersweet because you competed against Liverpool, and it was a very important day in Girona. Tomorrow, you'll have a video with the whole experience, because it was beautiful, but it just couldn't be. It just couldn't be. I think Liverpool was indeed superior in the second half, especially with the ball. They really bottled up Girona, even more. And as I said, it's a bittersweet feeling for Mitchell's team. They come away quite affected with just 3 points, and there are 6 points left to play for against Milan. Arsenal, which are obviously tough matches, but they competed well against Liverpool. They could have caused them trouble, especially in the first half with that double chance from Bryan Gill and Alejandro Frances. From there on, it was a competitive match that the most informed team in the world ended up winning. Today, Arne Slot's team didn't have their best game, which is also a credit to Girona, who, as I said, managed to identify potential weaknesses behind them. Well, you can't say that Liverpool's victory was unjust. In fact, I think it was fair when you weigh everything. It was very evenly matched. It could have ended in a draw, but I don't think it's crazy that Liverpool won, even though the penalty might be controversial because it's a bit of a soft penalty. But as I said, for me, it's a penalty. Tomorrow, you'll have a video with the whole experience from the trip. Honestly, it's been a pleasure and an honor to be here with you all, and especially to show you what we have for tomorrow, because it's going to be the most beautiful thing. Of course, it couldn't be a victory, but for the people in Girona, today has been a magical day, and that's how they conveyed it to us in the vlog we'll upload tomorrow. A hug, friends from Mundo Maldini, and don't wake me up from this dream. All right, bye. See you later.